The rain had finally stopped after 3 relentless days. A pale sun broke through the thick clouds, spilling its light across the quiet village where James and Diep had lived since their wedding. The air was fresh with the scent of wet soil and ripened corn drifting in through the open window. Somewhere beyond the fields, a rooster crowed lazily, marking the return of calm after the storm. Life in this small corner of the countryside had slowed to a rhythm both tender and deliberate, worlds away from the chaos they once knew in the city. For the first time in years, James felt something like peace settle in his heart. Each morning, Diep rose before sunrise. She swept the yard, fed the chickens, and prepared breakfast for James and his mother, Mrs. Quynh. Her laughter, soft, unforced, filled their modest home with warmth, and James often found himself standing quietly in the doorway, watching her. After all the storms they had survived, the betrayals, the losses, the long nights of fear, the simple act of watching her move in the morning light felt almost like a dream. But that morning, something was different. Diep moved more slowly than usual. Her skin was pale, and her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. "Are you all right?" James asked, touching her forehead with gentle concern. "You look a bit tired." "I'm fine," she replied with a faint smile. "Just a little dizzy, maybe it's the weather." From the kitchen, Mrs. Quynh looked up from the dough she was kneading. Her eyes sparkled with quiet intuition. "Dizzy, And you've not been eating much lately either. Tell me, Diep, when was the last time you had a checkup?" Diep froze, color rushing to her cheeks. James frowned, puzzled, then the realization dawned on him slowly, almost hesitantly. Mrs. Quynh chuckled softly. "Perhaps it's time to visit the clinic," she said. "The news that changed everything." That afternoon, James drove Diep to the small clinic near the market. Puddles glistened along the road, and every bump made her grip his hand tighter. She said little, gazing out the window, her reflection blending with the pale gray sky. The doctor, a kind, middle-aged woman, smiled after completing the examination. "Congratulations," she said, turning the ultrasound screen toward them. "You're going to be parents." For a moment, time stopped. James froze, his breath caught in his chest. Diep's lips parted as tears welled up in her eyes. She turned toward the man who had once lost everything and rebuilt his world piece by piece. "James," she whispered, "are you hearing what I'm hearing?" He nodded, tears glistening, and let out a laugh, pure and unguarded. The doctor smiled as he pulled Diep into his arms. "We're going to have a baby," he murmured into her hair. "Our baby." Too Deep pressed her face against his chest, feeling the thundering rhythm of his heart beneath her palm. All their struggles, all the sleepless nights, suddenly felt worth it. When they left the clinic, the setting sun bathed the village in molten gold. The puddles on the road shimmered like liquid light, and the air carried the scent of new beginnings. "Let's go home," James whispered. Too Deep smiled through her tears. "Yes, let's go home." The calm before another storm. In the weeks that followed, life moved with gentle grace. Mrs. Hyen hummed lullabies as she cooked. James left early each morning and returned each evening with fruit and tender smiles. On the porch, Too Deep often sat with a cup of tea, one hand resting on her growing belly, feeling the fragile life within. But behind James's calm exterior, a storm was quietly forming. His company, the one he had fought to rebuild after John's betrayal, was facing another crisis. A key supplier had pulled out, shipments were delayed, investors were losing faith. Each night, long after the house went quiet, James sat alone in his study, the glow of spreadsheets reflecting in his tired eyes. The numbers blurred together, heavy with pressure. He told himself not to worry too deep. She needed peace and rest. He would bear the weight alone, but she noticed, she saw the weariness in his eyes, the tremor in his hands. Some nights, she woke to find him sitting by the window, face half hidden in shadow. One evening, as rain tapped gently on the roof, she draped a blanket over his shoulders. "James," she said softly, "you haven't been sleeping well. Is everything all right?" He forced a smile. "Just business. Don't worry, my love. You and our baby, that's all I care about." But his voice cracked, betraying him. Her heart ached. She wanted to believe him, yet she knew the truth. The burden he carried was too heavy for one man alone. A choice of love and sacrifice. The next morning, while James was at work, Too Deep sat with Mrs. Hyen in the kitchen. "He's trying to protect you," the older woman said gently. "Men like James carry their pain in silence." But sometimes, love means sharing the burden, not hiding it. Those words stayed with Too Deep. Days turned into weeks. James skipped meals, came home late, and the silence between them deepened. Not from lack of love, but from too much of it, twisted by fear. Then one rainy afternoon, she overheard him on the phone. "What do you mean the deal fell through? We can't lose that contract." "No, I'll find a way to cover it." Her heart sank. That night, after he left for another late meeting, Too Deep made a quiet decision. She opened a wooden box from her drawer. Inside lay the land papers her late father had left her, a small inheritance, but enough to help. She knew James would never agree. Love, she thought, isn't always about asking permission. Sometimes it's about faith. The next morning, she went to the notary's office, hands trembling as she signed away her family's land. The money she received was more than currency, it was memory, legacy, and love intertwined. But imagining James's burden eased brought her peace. That evening, she greeted him with her usual smile. "Welcome home," she said, placing dinner on the table. He looked exhausted. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he murmured. "You'll never have to find out," she whispered. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, a warning of storms yet to come. The breaking point. For 3 nights, the rain fell without pause. James sat in his office, exhausted but restless. Then came a notification from the bank, an unexpected deposit, large enough to save the company. Relief surged through him, then confusion. He checked the sender's name. His breath stopped. "Too deep," he called her immediately. "Diep, what did you do?" Her tone was calm, almost gentle. "I sold the land my father left me. It wasn't much, but it's enough, isn't it?" James's voice broke. "You sold your father's land, without telling me? I know you didn't want me to worry," she said softly. "But I saw how hard you were fighting. I couldn't just stand by." "Stand by?" His tone rose, sharp with hurt. "Do you think I wanted you to sacrifice your past so I could feel capable? You should have trusted me." Tears filled her voice. "I did it because I do trust you, because I believe in you." "I just didn't want you to face it all alone." Silence stretched between them, long and heavy, the rain whispering like a third presence. Finally, he said, low and trembling, "Love isn't about saving each other in secret, Diep. It's about standing together." "And what if standing together," she whispered, "means watching you fall?" The line went dead. Something fragile between them shattered. That night, Diep packed a small bag and left for her mother's home in the countryside. Mrs. Hyen didn't question her. She simply embraced her daughter-in-law and said softly, "Sometimes, distance helps hearts understand what words cannot." The reckoning. Days passed. The company began to recover, ironically, thanks to the money Diep had given. But for James, every report he signed felt hollow. He missed her voice, her laughter, her quiet strength. Yet pride, his oldest companion, kept him silent. Then, one afternoon, an email arrived. Subject: investment proposal, Men Corporation. James's stomach tightened. Men, the rival who had once eyed too deep with unspoken affection. The message was brief. I've heard of your company's troubles. I'm willing to invest. Consider this a chance for renewal. No conditions, but James knew better. No one gave something for nothing. That night, unable to sleep, he was haunted by the image of Men's easy smile, the way he used to look at Too Deep. When his calls went unanswered, panic consumed him. The rain began to fall again, harder this time. Without thinking, he grabbed his coat and drove into the storm. The return. The headlights carved through the downpour as he sped along the muddy roads toward her mother's house. By the time he arrived, night had fallen. The house glowed faintly through the mist. There, under the porch light, sat Too Deep. She was humming softly, one hand resting on her belly, her eyes closed as if listening to the heartbeat within. James stopped. Regret washed over him, heavier than the rain. He stepped closer, voice trembling. Deep, she opened her eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she smiled, tired but kind. You came. He knelt before her, taking her hands. I'm sorry, he whispered. I let my pride hurt you. Everything you did out of love. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she shook her head gently. We both made mistakes, James. You tried to protect me. I tried to protect you. Maybe love isn't about who sacrifices more, but about knowing when to stop fighting alone. A soft wind stirred, carrying the scent of wet earth. James placed his hand on her belly, his voice breaking. Can you forgive me? She smiled through her tears. Only if you promise one thing. That no matter how hard it gets, we'll face it together. He nodded. Together. Always. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but for the first time, it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like a promise.